I want to ask Martin first, because you haven't, you have reflected, and I see you kind of in first row, and I put you
totally
on the spot.
into it. Totally into it.
Martin has had a huge career in music, with Sony, with Columbia, with all the big record labels, and now he kind of re-emerged as the leader of the audio portfolio at Red Bull Media House, which is, I think, super interesting to see. Well, there's traditional industry, which we will talk about, having also your perspective on that, but now new players in town. There's new app people, there's new technology, but there's also new ways of publishing. We know Red Bull from having their own events and for creating Flugtag and all these crazy things. So give us a little bit of a perspective of what you're up to, and also maybe you kick us off in a little bit of a reflection, what you see today, what you think, where's the future of music going, with a little bit of influence by mobile?
How much time do I have?
Loaded question. Go ahead. Take your time.
Okay, I take my time. No, to understand that, I really need to start a bit earlier. I used to be a musician first, a singer. If you go on, if you Google me, or if you YouTube, you find on YouTube extremely embarrassing moments from the late 70s and very early 80s. I even went to the Eurovision Song Contest for Austria. No. Yeah, in 1980.
We have a star.
I had hair by then. Yeah,
12 points.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, no 12 points. Then I became a journalist. Then I went to Marlboro, Philip Morris, who tried in the late 80s to engage in music, because when they looked at the charts, what is the most important thing for young people? Obviously, music. So they said, He wasn't smoking, no, it was music. So they obviously at that time, they thought to be involved in the music industry, we need to have a record company. So they started a label, and I was doing marketing and other thing, and learned a lot about branding and all that kind of stuff. Then became marketing director of Mercury Records Phonogram, then went on to London to run international marketing for Sony as a VP, and came back as a managing director for the greatest label on earth, Columbia Records. Was a managing director here in Frankfurt, moved the company to Berlin, and stopped working in 2001, mainly because my wife died from one day to another, which was very tragic with 2 boys, but also the whole industry went into this mode of, I mean, I had every year that task, cut off 10% of your people and deliver 10% more turnover. Well, that was not the reason why I went into music. So I was really fed up with the whole system, and you could feel at 2001 Napster was there. You could feel, oh my God, it's getting nasty. So I went out. I got involved in the fashion label that my wife invented. Sold that in 2007, and I thought I will never ever go back to the music industry, because I was quite busy doing other stuff. And until last year, end of last year, when somebody in Berlin who runs a headhunting agency told me, you should talk to Red Bull. I said, why should I talk to Red Bull? I mean, I'm Austrian, that's fine, I understand their language, but why on earth should I talk to them? Well, yeah, they're looking for someone talking music or understanding music. So I went there, and the more and more I talked to them, I understood the amount of opportunity that is in there. You have a big brand, a sexy brand, that has a great affinity to music. You have attached to that brand a media house that is producing content in more than 60 countries, all over the world. So whenever some crazy guy jumps with his bike from some cliff, there's a camera, and they need music every day. Plus, there are numerous entities they created, like Red Bull Soundstage in America. Right now, 500 artists are on Soundstage. As on-premise, Red Bull is sponsoring Lollapalooza. They said, okay, we sponsor you, but we want to have 11 slots. So they look at Soundstage, and we look at the bands that are really well performing there, engaging and have the most interactivity going on with their fans. They bring them to Lollapalooza and let them play there. Now the bands are totally, and we give them wings.
And you're the label for them?
No. definitely no. But there are various layers, and I haven't, to be honest, I haven't even started to understand what the whole cosmos of that label can do. There is a record label, yes, there's Rebel Records in Los Angeles. We just opened Rebel Records in the UK. There is a publishing company, which is, I'm the head of the publishing company, music publishing company. There's all sorts of other entities. For instance, the Rebel Music Academy, which is quite famous. We do the 15th anniversary next year in April in New York. It's a great, little entity that is not very much known about there in the real world. But musicians really want to go there because they get a lot of knowledge there and a lot of cooperation for the future. So there's so many things going on. And so far, and I couldn't really understand why there was nobody there coming from a music background, a music business background, connecting the dots in the back, which is basically my job right now. So for me, it's like Wonderland. It's like the perfect playground because I have a brand that needs music, that has a desire for exciting music, and I have a media entity that plays around with all sorts of, there's cash, which you need to play around, and there's no immediate need to create turnover, but obviously in the long term, yes, why not? And the content production that engages with exciting music will also produce feedback, will also produce attention, and if we're ready to monetize attention, thank you very much, then we're there. So I hope that's, yeah. I try to be very quick.
Okay, one aspect is also Red Bull has also a mobile operator basically in a couple of countries, South Africa, Austria. So there's even obviously a mobile aspect to some of the business. And
yeah, not only there. I mean, there's IPTV on Red Bull TV. There's the Red Bull Music Academy Radio as an app. Download it; it's wonderful. So there's numerous. I'm not really the expert there. I'm just trying to tap into the waters there.
Well, but you're also on the board of Opeo, I think.
That's true.
So you are in touch with the app industry as well. So tell us a little bit about maybe do you have a wow moment, or did you have a wow moment with digital media or with mobile specifically maybe, and where do you see mobile can influence music, and is there, what are you excited about in this industry?
Well, my absolute wow moment was Spotify, I must say, because for the first time this whole idea of how to consume music is not about downloading a track, downloading, even iTunes is like thinking in the old way, is thinking in that mechanical reproduction way, in a way. And Spotify, for the first time, wants money from me to shut off advertising and to take my playlists that I created for hours and hours and hours, that I can take with me on my mobile device. So therefore, you pay that €9, whatever, €9.90, just to have that convenience. So for the first time, it was really, a different way of monetizing music, and the whole idea of scaling that to a point where people who actually listen to music, because it was always that way, that only 6% of the population, probably in almost every country, in England it was a bit more, in America it was a bit more, only 6% of the population would buy music in the early days. And even then we had a great party in the 90s because the margins were incredible. So only 6% buy. But how many people listen to music? So if we manage to monetize that attention to music, then I'm sure the artists, as we heard this morning, like in Sweden, will be very happy in about maybe 10 years' time from now.
I was building websites for EMI and Warner Brothers and East West and whatever in '96 or something, and there was a cool study, or actually it was a frustrating study from EMI, and so they said, I think everybody basically over 30 or 32 is a sleeper. So you buy your music, which defines you maybe in your teenage days, then you keep buying and you kind of explore a little bit, but after a while, I maybe buy always the same, Bruce Springsteen has a new one and Madonna, or 2 or 3 of my favorites, it's sort of a subscription, of course, whatever it is, I buy it, but everything else is more or less, so I'm kind of part of this sleep
Yeah,
up.
I think that's the challenge, really.
And that's, you alluded to that, so I wanted
Yeah.
to open this up to you.
It's, you know, the gap between the decline in physical sales and the rise in digital sales is not rising quickly enough. So we know we need to do something, and you know, the stuff that's going on around connecting artists with brands and consumers, you know, audience aggregation that Martin's alluding to, that stuff is definitely the future. But I think an important thing that has to happen is we need to reconnect the majority of people who've got out of the habit of paying for music, or even really listening to music at all. You know, you meet a lot of people in their, you know, not even in their 30s, in their 20s, who've got out of the habit of buying music. You know, and these aren't even the digital natives that have grown up with YouTube and Google. These guys remember going out as kids and buying records. How do you re-engage, you know, the majority of people with music? And I think the thing is, with digital has brought great convenience, but it's also made people lazy, and it's taken away the effort required to access content, but it's taken away the patience that people had, that they would you know, the effort they would put in to get hold of that music. So if you're creating a music service and there is any type of complexity or distraction, then you're risking losing those people. And that's what we're finding with our service today, is that because we've focused primarily on taking away any distraction whatsoever, even down to login or activation vouchers or any of that type of stuff. You know, take it all away and literally just give the users a play button. They will use it. People will hit that play button, and they'll get re-engaged with music again. That's the way forward for me.
So, Beverly, what do you think? Is music already in there, or are we going into something similar maybe in the games market, where you have the heavy users, which was, you know, playing console games, it's awesome, it's super, but now, since a couple of years, we have social media games, and the casual gamers are like, I don't know, 10 times bigger. Zynga and Wooga in Germany and you know, all these kind of guys, all of a sudden that is, you know, so much bigger than Electronic Arts or EA was. Right. So if you say like 6% were the buyers, that was the market. In a way, if we can get double that from 6 to 12, you know, it's amazing. It would be explosion. So how do you think, or from your experience, can we get these social listeners, which maybe were just content with listening to radio? Hey, it's some music, it's in the background. You know, yes, we don't like to hear that, but how can we get them engaged? And maybe just, do they want to just listen to radio and not really stream and interact with it?
So I don't think that there's a negative associated with the idea of passive listening to radio. I think that regardless of it being passive or if you're actively engaged in it, there is something that happens to your psyche when you are listening to music. And so when you think about the popularity of some of the most popular pieces of music, they are the soundtrack to Jeopardy, the soundtrack to Angry Birds, the soundtrack to the Nokia phone ringing. You know, those kinds of sounds, music, get embedded into your psyche. And it wasn't that I was actively engaging with the ringtone when my phone rang, it just is what happens. So I think the challenge with gaming, and so I wanted to go back to 1 second before we talk about the gaming piece about this. Some of the burden is on the artist. So the idea that the artist is in fact themselves a brand, the creator is in fact themselves a brand, and the creator of the music has a responsibility, especially now that the label is sort of fallen back to a position, and sort of apps and some of the technology and some of the digital sort of innovations have replaced that middleman that someone talked about in their presentation. The artist has a responsibility to figure out exactly what is it that I'm creating, what is it that I want my creation, how do I want it to interact with people, how do I want people to interact with it. There are lots of artists that feel like gaming is a sellout, and that they want a much bigger stage, where there are other artists that sort of see the value of that. And I think the burden is, in fact, not on the label, not on the technology, not on whether it's active or it's passive, but from the creative process. What is it that you want it to do? What is it that you want it to, do you want it to inspire? Do you want it to motivate? Do you want people to just to get up and shake their butt? Do you want to win an award? Is it for critical acclaim? Whatever it is, then figure out the path, whether it's streaming or whether it's, you know, sort of, downloads, because there are some people that want you to have it and to belong to it and to live with it and to sit with it, whatever that is, or some people that want you to have it in just a live experience only. Whatever that is, the creator has a big role in driving that, and social makes that happen just sort of bring it full circle, because now not only do I not have the music label, I also don't have the publicist. So the artist can talk directly to their fan. If I want my fans to be in a place to experience my music in real time, I can tell you where I'm going to be on this stage at 5:30. And if you like what I do, if you're feeling it, if it's good to you, then come here and we'll do it together. Or download it, or listen to it.
I think the music industry and the mobile industry have so much in common, especially I think you can sum it up with like, you know, there's an app for that. I think an app is a song, right? And you can be a one-hit wonder, like we have this Tiny Wings, which is from Germany. One guy, he developed the music, the programming, everything. I think he lives 100 kilometers from here. And 100 million downloads, or no, more than 10 million downloads, probably 20 million now. So he's no longer being on stage because probably he just need to hide, right? Okay, but it's like one app, and it could be a song. It could be, or if you have a band, basically, well, you can be a one-hit wonder, or you can be U2 and basically say, okay, I have 200 shows throughout the year, and I'm an experienced band, and we have a lot of back catalog, and I built the brand as, you know, U2 sort of as a brand. And yes, we have apps, we have a lot of songs, but there's a back catalog and different ways how to monetize. So the question to you, Michael, is, well, you have, first of all, you know, built Last.fm as a super service to, you know, discover and share what, you know, I'm listening to with all my friends. But now you are added as RJ DJ, and how did you do that? You didn't move, but how did you do it?
It's reactive music.
Excuse me.
It's like we're in a submarine. So, how do you now, let's say, being, you know, driving your app with your partnerships with the movie industry and so on? How do you go and build your brand for your company? Is it with a focus on RJ DJ, the app, or are you building, let's say, these? What's your strategy in kind of breaking it as sort of an artist, if you will?
Phew. That's a question, man. So, well, first of all, yes, the app world is like the music world in a way. So you create an app, and even if you look at how it's consumed, with every app you see a spike. I mean, with most apps, and then it goes down again. So that's how you create an app. It's not as, like, for example, when we created Last.fm, we knew, you know, we are building up users. And yeah, we had small spikes because there was something on TV and I don't know, whatever, and you had a spike, but then, you know, it just started to grow again from sort of up there. And there's only a few apps who really cracked it, who really managed to get natural growth. Yeah. And for example, we haven't cracked that. Yeah. And as you said, like, not many people have cracked that. So really, if you are active in the App Store, you have to think of an app like, you know, a piece of music. That's how it all works. That's, unfortunately, not many get that. Yeah, and because you only have sort of a short amount of time where you can monetize, where you can get things working, and all of that. Yeah. In the case of RJ DJ, yeah, so we have certainly found one way of sort of riding the one-hit thing, or the sort of what's it called? I don't know. Anyway, you know. So we try with our movie apps. It's we have established this format where we can make soundtracks, and I'm talking Hollywood movie soundtracks, a better experience, an augmented experience. Yeah. So people like that. But of course, what happens as well is that people like Inception, people like Dark Knight Rises, people like this and that, and that's why you get traffic works, yeah, tick. But the big problem is, then we do other apps that don't have sort of the star system behind it. How do you get that up? And there's a big thing going on, you know, currently, because the App Store is not the solution for that. And it's almost like the music industry. And when we did Last.fm, we said F and something, the music industry.
Four-letter word.
Oops.
because we don't like sort of this this categorization and the star system of the music industry. We think that if you just move music out and let the consumers decide what's good, then you will see all sort of different genres in there. And that's what actually happened with Last.fm. We had this music map, and you could see super interesting things and super interesting upcoming artists and all of that. And out of that, that was the idea of Last.fm. The music industry didn't get it. And now sort of all these services are coming up, Spotify and so on, who are taking sort of advantage of this, Pandora. But in the app world, it's still, you know, I mean, there's nothing like that.
No.
That's true.
Well, up until, I would say, 2 years ago, they still didn't get it. I mean, old record company people, they still didn't get it because, I mean, it was great. Silverman opened the new music seminar in New York by going on stage with a little hat, a little baseball cap with some blinders, like the horses would have blinders, and then there would be a stick, and on this stick there would be a CD, and the CD was like there, and he would say, well, it's about time that the industry realizes that we have to get rid of this CD. It's not about a CD, it's about music. And there's so many opportunities to get attention with music, buy music, get engaged with music, go to a concert, buy a CD, for crying out loud. 78% in Germany is still CD business. 78%. In America it's like half and half right now. But digital is taking over. So it's still there, but there's so many other ways. But in the minds, it's still this mechanical, physical reproduction. And try to get that out of a brain that has lived
there's an obsession
all
with
its life.
formats, right?
Yep.
So there's this search for the next format. What is the next?
What's the next?
What is the next?
Which
CD?
is still that.
It's still the same old thinking. Some people are saying
Reproduction idea.
It's high quality audio, which is, you know, there may be something in there. I mean, you know, other people have other ideas. I love that Beck has released his new album as sheet music. You know, he's not releasing it in format. He's letting the fans make the music for him. I think I'm not sure that's the future, but it's a nice.
But it's a nice
diversion.
disruption, exactly.
Exactly,
It's
and
nice
so
disruption.
it's nice to know that people are at least starting to think in different ways.
It's also
but,
less work for Beck.
So,
But let me say something. I predict something. In 2 years, this man will hide.
Yeah.
we all want that.
This man will hide.
happen to
Because
him,
what he has on offer, what we saw this morning from him, is a disruptive thing.
Yep.
It's something, once he gets into, and we talked briefly at lunch, once he gets onto the whole American EDM scene, they're gonna swallow him.
I
He's
think
gonna be gone.
if we could combine, let's say, this with Roskilde's 120,000 people, if they all can kind of jump with their iPhone just you know, while they're waiting for Bruce
Imagine
Springsteen or
that
whatever,
symphony.
you know, that would, I think there's
I'm
some
already
ideas. I
stealing
think.
him. I'm already thinking of something
You're already
for us
thinking,
to do,
okay.
so go away.
Thank you. Feels really good. Feels really good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Love. It's about love.
But seriously, no. I think I don't think so. I think what we're doing. I mean, I love it. Yeah. I mean, maybe you could tell when I presented it, but really, I'm currently seeing that sort of. It's so. I mean, like we did we started working on Last.fm in 2000, and at that time, I'm wondering why we didn't tell. No, when did you get out of the?
2001.
Ah, okay, so yeah, I didn't know you then. I would have loved to talk to you, but everyone I talked to in the music industry about what we did was like, they were just like,
They were scared.
how stupid is that?
They were just trying to protect themselves at that point.
No, it wasn't even, they didn't even get it.
Because their heads were down. It's hard to get something when your head's in the ground.
We were talking to, what's it called, AR department.
A&R.
A&R,
Artist
yeah.
and repertoire.
Is that the guys who are finding new artists?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, those guys, yeah. So
Their heads are down and the other part is up.
yeah, those guys, yeah. We go, guys, look, we have all this data, yeah? You can see why someone is sort of an upcoming new artist. No, not interested. This is nothing for us.
When I started in Sony, my boss used to, that was 1995, he was writing with his pen, and he said he needed the smell of ink. And he had 2 assistants. One was only there to print out the emails. He would then write on that, and then the secretary would then put that into an email and send it back. How should a guy like that understand the PlayStation generation that was launched in 1995? It's impossible.
Totally. But so I think that was difficult, yeah. But in a way, I think what we've done with Last FM, and unfortunately that sort of creativity and that sort of, you know, the things we have come up, stopped basically when I left. But that took really long time, and I don't even think that services like Spotify, you know, they are not there. I mean, it's a great service. You can get music. You know, you say I want to listen to Adele, you listen to Adele, but I don't know. I mean, you're saying Spotify is great for sleepers. I don't think so. I mean, I have a Spotify account just because I have to, but then I get on Spotify and go, what do I listen to now? Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, I think that actually the way you can actually get sleepers back is, I mean, why is someone over 30 not downloading, buying, or streaming music? Because he has no, he's just like, he's not in it anymore.
That's true. I think, you know, I love Spotify, and I have a Spotify premium account, and I pay for it every month, but I rarely use Spotify. I listen to music as a way to help me, and music is very emotional to me. People listen to music when they have life-changing moments. And so, you know, the guy earlier who talked about mood music, that's sort of connecting music to how people, regardless of what demographic age group they happen to fall into, is sort of the challenge. And the answer isn't, and it won't be, and we were deluding ourselves if we think it's a sort of monolithic, one-dimensional thing that's going to solve all of our problems, because it won't speak to users all the way. I listen to Pandora at work probably 10 hours a day because the stations that I program change as I go through my day. When I'm writing, it's one thing. When I'm pitching, it's another thing. When I'm creating, it's something else. And that's how I use it. But in my car, I listen to traditional radio. I like the sound of commercials because I sell shit for a living.
On Orpeo, you can listen to, you know, to moods as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
You can tune into moods.
So
Yes.
I think these kind of services that actually get away from this sort of thinking of on demand, I want to listen to it, they will be more relevant in the next coming years than they have been in 2000 when we created Last FM. So it almost feels like what we've done then is actually only really relevant sort of in the next 2 years. But what we are doing with RJ DJ isn't 2 years. It's, I don't know, I feel more it's 5 to 10 years, even 50 or something.
I predict it's going to go faster.
Yeah, I think you have more fans than you think.
Beverly, do you have a wow moment with digital where something which you saw on your phone or with an app or something where you say, oh wow, I remember this was awesome?
Yeah, well, you have to ask me which phone.
I know you have 12.
I have so many. But I don't know if it was on my phone as much as it is with my phone, because I am a sleeper. I like what I already know. I like my music like I like my men, comfortable. Like, I don't have to work too hard for it. And so,
how much music do you have? And how much men do you have?
I never pay for it. But, okay, now I saw the jet lag starting to kick in. But the thing that's cool for me with regard to sort of the wow for me is, and I answered this question when we were doing the little interview for the article for this event, is that I discover and fall in love with things when I don't know what it is and it's unexpected. And so for me, because the piece that's missing, because we can talk about, Pandora and Spotify and some others, but the thing that really works for me is things like soundtracking and Shazam, because I hear a song and I'm like, oh my God, who sings that? And I just go and I pull it out and it tells me. And then whatever path you use, whether it's just the play button or whether it's, the old method of doing a download, or it's me actually having to go to the Target or the Walmart and buy it, whatever the method is getting it to me now so that I have it, so that it's a part of me and that I'm now in love with that artist. One of the challenges that I think that's sort of happened from because I always sort of go back to the artist side of it, is that the sort of playlist, streaming, download economy that we've gotten ourselves into is it makes artists go for the one-hit wonder. Because now a CD or a body of work, let's not call it a CD or an album, let's call it a body of work. So the artist goes in the studio, they're holed up in the studio for 6 months creating something, and out of that creation comes one song. How is that okay?
Yeah,
When
but
did that become all right?
Yeah, but that was the majority of the CDs we released in the 90s were
Exactly.
2 songs probably on a CD, on an album CD, which you paid like 15 euros for it, and it was 2 songs. And the rest was...
And now that's the thing. I can go on to iTunes or Amazon and download one song, and the artist thinks that's all they have to do. And it's like, when did that become okay? When did you decide that you were just going to drink and smoke up the money that we gave you to produce music? And so I think that's why the labels are just, you know, if they get one song out of it, that's okay. And I don't think that's a lifetime body of work for an artist. I mean, you got to be able to have like the Bruce Springsteens on the YouTube. You got to be able to have a body of work where when you get on the stage to perform, people know what you're talking about, and they can.
I think it's that the live music and the passion for live music that continues will, I think, protect the integrity to some extent of artists who care about making a cohesive statement. It's not just about one song here, one song there. So let's hope that this passion that seems to be coming back over the last few years, more people are going to live music than ever. Let's hope that carries on, because if there's one thing that can keep us honest in the digital age, it's some guy getting on stage with a guitar in a sweaty room. I mean, that's kind of, I think, what will keep us on track.
Hey, you have here guys who get on stage with a mobile phone.
That's true.
Or UFO.
Yeah, and a new UFO.
Do you have a wow moment with digital? Did you have one?
I think I did actually. I think mine was probably actually Last.fm. It was a long time fan and user of Last.fm, and the mobile experience for me was was an eye opener. When I kind of got it working, it was back on a Symbian phone. Do you remember those? It was something that just seemed to know what I wanted to hear and recommend me stuff that actually that I liked. And this was kind of like, wow, it's actually starting to know me, and that was a good feeling, that digital can be personal again. It can be like the guy in the record shop who you wouldn't go out for a drink with, but you're happy to have him recommend you, a music. It can be that sort of friend to you. So that's, I think, was my eye opener.
That must have been really helpful for you. So you didn't need to stand in the record shop anymore with your head down and no money, but you could do it. You could do it in your living room,
out in the street
on your own.
Yeah.
I have one question which takes us maybe totally on a different side, but there was something which you said about the global reach, and you said something where, Nokia phones, especially the S60s and S40s, are established in the southern part of the globe, developing countries where it's probably still, I don't know, 1 billion phones or whatever the exact number is installed. And isn't there like a huge chance of having mobile as a channel to have access or extend the reach for American artists, any kind of music artist through and then whatever the phone is. In this case, at least Nokia is still strong. Sure. How is music service extending also still in other parts of the world other than our first world problems?
So streaming is it has been over the last few years really primarily really strong in the States, spreading over to Europe, and now we're starting to see in the rest of the world, in India, in Indonesia and China, streaming becoming a big thing for the first time. The infrastructure has arrived to support streaming at last. We're kind of out there in a lot of these countries as Nokia trying to create this market for digital music. There isn't a lot of other players in some of the territories where we're launching these streaming services.
So, India was a huge market
India's
for you.
one, we've optimized our service to work over 2G. It's really important to us that a guy in Bombay could walk down the street and the music would keep playing. So we're paying a lot of attention to those, sort of non-optimized mobile networks and really try to enable the streaming experience there. And it's, when you mention internet radio to a guy from India, we do trade shows, and he'd start looking for the antenna. He'd think radio was something else. So we're actually trying to move away from the word radio in those developing markets because it has very strong connotations with a very passionate way of consuming music. But people do get it. They like the instantaneous nature. They like the fact that it's free. They like the idea that, or it appears to be free, at least on our handsets to them. They like the fact that it's kind of a bundle service that they don't have to pay every time or subscribe every month just to get access. So it's starting to really take off in a big way. And I think, there is a huge amount of potential in these markets where traditionally we haven't put a lot of focus in terms of technology. We've expected them to take the dregs of the second-rate, infrastructure and the second-rate kind of handsets. That's changing. The money is there now. There are more millionaires in India than there are I think in most of Western Europe, and that's trickling down. There's a burgeoning middle class who want the expensive handsets, who want the great infrastructure in their home for Wi-Fi. So the world is about to change. It's about to change in a very different way.
How can this, I mean, the music's biggest night, is that only paid by CBS and they then deal with the rights? Or could you carve out rights and say, oh, Nokia can now write a check and say, hey, I want to be biggest night in India and China, which is maybe, I don't know,
Well, I
gives
will
you
always take
more.
Nokia, Microsoft money, any day, every day, and twice on Sunday. But you know, we're working on a project right now in China. You know, because the exact same theory holds, is that we're music's biggest night. We cover music in 78 categories, and most of those 78 categories is not so much about exporting, and this is just my personal opinion, not necessarily the opinion of the Academy. I need to provide that disclaimer. You know, it's not so much about receiving music about exporting music outside of the United States. I mean, everyone's going to know who Beyonce and Jay-Z are, and Eminem and U2. Well, they're not even American, but the idea is that those kinds of music artists, everybody's going to know who they are. But it's, what about the Chinese artist who has this amazing voice, and because she, you know, only speaks, you know, Mandarin, but she can sing in multiple languages, including English, and the ability to transport that into the U.S. and as a part of the American experience in terms of having that rise to the same level of music, to admiration, excuse me, and recognition. And the same thing for artists in India. I mean, there is that possibility, and mobile's breaking down those walls and those barriers, because if you can imagine handsets where music is transferable easily and receivable easily, whether it's streaming or not, it's also being able to get those music artists in and listening to streaming stations, not calling them radio, but streaming music services from other parts of the world and getting a world music perspective. And I think that's the crazy thing about what Red Bull's doing, because it's so global, it's so prolific through so much of the branding. It's a brand. I mean, they're selling, you know, just like McDonald's sells hamburgers, they're selling hype water. Well, I know it's more magic than that, but it's hype water for the most part. And when you mix it with vodka, it's really good. And I know you're not supposed to do that, but I mean, it is a cultural phenomenon. And that's the part about that makes the most sense. Because I think when we walk away, when we get to the business of it, and I'm all about the business of music, but when we get to sort of the cultural implication of it, that's where it has its most magic moments.
So can Gangnam Style from Korea, can then,
Oh, good Lord.
are they
If they aren't on the
performing
red
next
I'm sure they'll be on the red carpet.
I bet.
Stop it.
I think they will be in the show, no?
Okay, don't get carried away. But I'm sure they'll be on the carpet.
But they have like 40 million, 20 million downloads in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I'm sure all of that's very exciting. But I suspect not.
Okay.
He's trying to tie me down to stuff.
I would have one question. How much of the traffic you generated, did you track that? How much
Attribution?
come from outside America?
Outside of, yes. So our biggest audiences outside of the U.S. are Canada, Mexico, the U.K., some other parts of Europe, and there's starting to be quite a fair amount of traction in China, which is why, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on exporting U.S. culture into that part of the world and having them be ready to receive it. And sort of the amazing thing about the Grammy experience is that it is the gold stamp, the gold approval of an artist's ability to achieve an accomplishment. And having said that, those artists want that. And so it's probably, you know, heavily U.S. obviously, and in the other 170 countries where we are seen, it's sort of off times, and so it's not all at the same time. But my social traffic was all just U.S. based.
Yeah. I want to open up to questions, if you have one or two.